Hi, this is R-GOnax and we talk about things that don't matter. The MOBA genre is almost exactly 20 years old, if not older. But surprisingly, it hasn't changed much in that time. I don't mean the games in the genre haven't changed, obviously they do. Games like Dota, Smite, League of Legends, they receive constant game patches and updates all the time. But what I mean is that fundamentally, the genre has remained the same. And I do think that that is essential, that all game genres need to evolve with time. MOBAs started with Aeon of Strife, a custom game mode for StarCraft 1 back in the day. But that's not what people really think of when they think of the origins of the MOBA genre. That's Warcraft 3, with the Dota All-Stars mod. This is what people really consider as the origin point of all MOBAs. Fast forward a few years and then suddenly you got the big two, namely Dota 2 and League of Legends. There came a slew of smaller MOBAs. Typically, these smaller MOBAs would copy the blueprint of these other big MOBAs. Well, mostly League of Legends, since it was the bigger game of the two and it was easier to replicate its blueprint. Take your pick of which of the following aspects these smaller MOBAs copied. Smite, Mobile Legends, predecessor, jungle buffs, base recalls, bush mechanics, a flash-like spell, the need to unlock playable characters. Am I nitpicking? Maybe a little bit. I'm a salty Dota player. Many MOBAs tried new things and new mechanics. Smite and Paragon experimented with a third-person MOBA and perspective, and I must emphasize that word, experimented, because I feel like they didn't properly utilize the whole third-person perspective properly. It always felt like it was underutilized or a gimmick or a novelty, not so much a full-fledged feature of the game. In my opinion, these games have always felt very floaty and clunky. Smite in particularly is barely a third-person MOBA, since the game quite literally has no verticality. The jump feature in this game is a meme. It's cosmetic. It does nothing. The developers added it in as a joke, I think. Probably. Again, salty Dota player. There were other third-person MOBA likes, not full-on MOBAs, but close enough to be a point of comparison, such as Monday Night Combat and Battleborn, but these games also failed for a litany of different reasons. So while there were a lot of experiments in the genre, there was actually very few true evolutions within it. And I must stress again, I think evolution is necessary for any genre to be successful. The first-person shooter genre went from Wolfenstein to Doom, and then jumped into the 3D with Quake, and then the first modern FPS, in my opinion, Half-Life came out, and then a few years later, down the line, Call of Duty 4 added gameplay elements that have basically become industry standard at this point. This is the type of evolution that I'm talking about. The MOBA genre was in a comfy, if not a little stagnant, spot for almost 20 years. But that was until Papa Gaben and his little pal Ice Frog decided to change things up with the release of Deadlock. Because Deadlock, in my opinion, is the first true evolution of the MOBA genre. Hi Internet Wanderer, my name's R-GOnax. I make video reviews, essays, commentaries, and shorts. I hope you enjoy my content enough to do the YouTube things. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. There's many reasons why I feel like Deadlock truly innovates upon the MOBA genre itself. But one of the biggest contributing factors to that is the fact that Deadlock just feels very snappy. I actually snapped my fingers and it got picked up by the mic, but fuck it, we're keeping it in. The action is quick, it's responsive, the movement is immaculate. I've seen many people praise the fact that because it's a source engine game, and just source engine games typically have very, very good movement mechanics, just hard baked within the source code. The spells and combat is amazing. It's all right, And all of this is happening right there, in your face. The player, you are in control of all the actions that your character does. And for the most part, it does feel like you are the one controlling your character. Because again, these are MOBAs. Multiplayer Online Battle Arenas. The A stands for action, and many people feel like that action is taken away from them the moment that the camera is placed in the sky. One common complaint is that top-down games, especially in MOBAs, lack the feeling of control. People feel like they're not controlling the characters, more like giving them commands or suggesting actions for your character, like you're playing a one-man RTS. Now, I love RTSs. I have a lot of background and history in them. As a kid, I loved playing StarCraft 1, Empire Empire Earth, Age of Mythology, Warcraft 3, Mech Commander, Command and Conquer General, which is a wild game. Have you heard some of the voice lines in that shit? What the hell?
Do not hurt me. I will obey. I'm just a peasant. I'm hungry. Cannot we live in peace? I will work. Oh, okay, I will work and I have some shoes.
Our following is strong. I love a crowd. I will die for our cause. I'll make the sacrifice.
So when I eventually started playing MOBAs, the top-down nature of them came to me rather naturally. It didn't feel clunky at all. But I understand that for most people, the top-down MOBA aspects is a holdover from the genre's origins as a Warcraft 3 mod back in the day of Dota All-Stars. I know a lot of friends who started playing MOBAs who also have some backgrounds in RTSs, so it didn't bother them that much. But I also had quite a few friends who have never played an RTS in their lives, and while they eventually got used to it, it was definitely a trial by frustration, if that makes sense. One benefit of the bigger emphasis on shooting mechanics is that the barrier of entry is a lot lower and therefore a lot easier. It's just a simple fact that people will understand shooters easier and usually have played shooter games more often than RTS top-down games. So if we take away the top-down aspect of it, it just means that more people will actually want to try Deadlock. Another problem with the top-down view is that many of the mechanics of these top-down games and MOBAs are just very obtuse and unintuitive. For example, Dota has a mechanic called turn rates. Heroes need to take time to turn around in order to run in another direction. This is something that most players in shooter games don't even think about. Imagine if you couldn't turn around instantly. That type of stuff would drive people insane. Another one is called high ground mischance. So in Dota, if a target is on an elevated platform, let's say a ramp or on top of a staircase, they have the advantage as you have a 25% chance to miss on a ranged attack on them. In Deadlock, this type of stuff doesn't need to be explained by some weird mechanic. Just by virtue of you standing on a higher spot than the enemy is something that naturally makes sense because you are harder to hit and therefore aim at. Having to find a way to gamify this in a top-down game with some RNG dice roll is just another layer of needless complexity.
Well, everything.
And another thing is fog of war. Sure, you could explain to someone that line of sight and fog of war are the same thing, but then you introduce things like vision ranges and modifiers. And again, more layers of complexity that people just honestly don't want to deal with. And I think that honestly explains it the best. MOBAs are inherently a complex genre to play, so simplifying it where you can is great for most players. Esteemed dead smart man Albert Einstein once said, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." And when comparing Deadlock to its MOBA contemporaries, I think it fits that description rather perfectly. Holy shit, that was a very pretentious thing to say, R-GOnax. Wow! I don't think MOBAs are going anywhere, especially as far as the big two are concerned, Dota and League. They're still huge. They'll have players probably till the end of time. Those guys are never leaving that game. As far as they're concerned, that's their forever game. But these two MOBA titans will just remain as the last holdouts of the old MOBA style of play, in my opinion. Just like how people like to distinguish between boomer shooters and new shooters, I think MOBAs are gonna be the same, at least in a few years. And I think Deadlock will serve as the new blueprint for MOBAs or MOBA-like games moving forward. Who knows, maybe hero shooters and MOBAs will consolidate into a singular genre in a few years and then we'll have a new genre on our hands. Time will only tell, you know? I, for one, am very excited and I'm very pleased with how well Deadlock is doing. Honestly, a company like Valve would be the only ones who are willing to take a tried and true, set in stone, fundamental gameplay style like a MOBA and completely flip it on its head. And I cannot wait to see how this game progresses. Anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think top-down MOBAs are here to stay, or do you think that their time has passed? Let me know in the comment section below. Anyway, thanks for watching, Internet Wanderer. Do the YouTube things.